Hey everybody, it is Pete Toll, aka PT Sports 84. Wanted to dive into today's NBA 2K22 official ratings roster update for January 28th, 2022. This one seems to be a smaller update considering that there was a larger update put out 2 weeks ago because there was a month-long break before that as 2K and their staff, they were on holiday and um, things like that. So there was a little bit more to comb through 2 weeks ago than there was now. In this video, I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm going to go through each team and let you know the players that were changed, kind of where they went up and down as far as overall. But I'm also going to pinpoint a few players that I think should have went up or down, also based on um, their performance over the last 7 games. I kind of averaged out each team between the January 13th update and today's update, or yesterday's games. Should have had about 7 games total. Now, just a disclaimer: 2K does not usually factor in stats from the night before. So last night's games, the Sixers game and the Lakers game, likely those stats were not added into today's update. So just want to make that clear. So diving into the update here, want to make sure I switch it over to the ratings so you can kind of see what those ratings look like. First up, as always, is the Philadelphia 76ers. Joel Embiid, much needed increase. He went up to a 96 overall. That puts him on par with Nikola Jokic. 37 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists. I mean, he's been killing it over the last 7 games, actually pretty much all season. So well deserved there. I was curious to see why Tobias Harris did not go up in overall. Last 7 games, he's averaged 21 points a game, shooting 63% from three. His field goal percentage is up to 56%. 7 rebounds a game, 3 assists a game. Thought he should at least have gone up to an 85 overall, but 2K decided not to increase him. Also in this update, Furkan Korkmaz drops 1 overall to a 75 overall, averaging 9 points a game, but only shooting 24% from three. His shooting has really dipped. I think his confidence is down, and that's kind of what is to play here. Georges Niang drops 2 overall to a 74 overall. I didn't really agree with this one personally. I thought if he was going to stay at a 75, that would have been fine. Still shooting 41% from three, 3.5 rebounds a game, 2.5 assists. Is playing more minutes, only averaging 8 points a game, but he's coming off the bench, still a key contributor for the Sixers. No other changes for the team. There were 2 position changes here. Charles Brown Jr. Started 2 games at small forward, so he was switched over by 2K to small forward shooting guard. And then Miles Powell has been playing the backup point guard in very, very limited minutes, so he gets switched over to point guard. Moving over to the Milwaukee Bucks, they did not have any position changes, so just want to highlight some things for them. They only had 1 total overall change. That's Dante DiVincenzo. He went down 2 overall to a 77. More curiously, I'm surprised that Chris Middleton did not go up in overall. Middleton has averaged over his past 7 games 24 points a game, 46% from three, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, or 6 rebounds, 5 assists, I'm sorry. And then 1 steal a game and almost a block per game. That's at least an 86 overall, in my opinion. I thought that 2K could have at least gave him a little bit of love there. to get him up 1 overall. But no other changes for the teams. I still think that Wesley Matthews is a tad too low. I would put him on par with a 73. But DiVincenzo, like I said, went down -2. He's only averaging 7.6 points per game, not shooting it great, 34% field goal percentage in the last 7 games, 30% from 3. It's looked okay, but does not not the player that he was last season. Obviously, coming back off of injury, not looking great there. I thought that Pat Connaughton could have dipped down, just a tad to a 78 overall. But I wasn't mad that they kept him at a 79. But definitely Middleton should have been the one that went up in this update. Moving on to the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls really got smacked with injuries lately, so it was kind of hard to evaluate them since they're not at full strength. But they had a couple changes in this update. Ayu Dosunmu moved +1 to a 75 overall. Matt Thomas moves +2 to a 73 overall. Tyler Cook has moved +2 to a 73 overall. And then Alfonso McKinney's fallen out of the rotation, so he dips down 1 to a 70 overall. I wasn't, too upset about any of the changes here. I thought maybe DeMar DeRozan could have went up, 1 more overall, but I wasn't going to nitpick about that. I thought Ayu Dosunmu should have been moved to point guard, personally. He could have went up to a 76 overall, in my opinion, averaging 14 points a game, shooting 46% from 3, 5 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal per game. I thought that warranted at least the 76 overall, because if you're going to have Tony Bradley and Javonte Green at a 75, and then Derrick Jones Jr. at a 77, Kobe White is a 77, at least put Dosunmu at a 76. Now, when you do move him to point guard, it dips him -2 in the overall. Shout out to John Markish. His Twitter post highlighted that. They did increase his ball handling, but they didn't increase his pass vision. They did not increase his pass vision. It's still a 57. He's averaging 6 assists a game as the point guard on the team. So you have him at a 57, and then you have Kobe White as a 53. Kobe White's averaging 3.6 assists. Dosunmu's averaging 6. At least get the man up to a 70 overall in vision at minimum, if not a little bit higher. That's my constructive criticism there for Dosunmu. Moving over to the Cleveland Cavaliers, they had a couple of changes as well. Looking at the roster, the only change that I thought that, that wasn't included here that I thought that should have been included, Isaac Okoro should have gotten a bump up to a 76 overall, and then Cedi Osman should have dipped down to 76 overall. Osman's been struggling, only 8 points per game, 35% field goal percentage, 23% from 3, while Okoro is averaging 8.7, 45% from the field, improved defense. That's where I thought he should have gotten a little bit of bump. That way it could have got him on par with Cedi Osman, at least. So that way, considering that Okoro is the starter there. But looking at the ratings of who went up and down for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Lauri Markkanen is now injured, but he did go +1 to a 78 overall. Rajon Rondo goes +1 to a 75 overall. Lamar Stevens has been in the rotation. He bumps +2 to a 74 overall. Dylan Windler goes +1 to a 73 overall. Don't really understand how Windler went up. He's only averaging 3.7 points per game. I guess because the three-point shooting has improved a little bit, but I don't really know why he went up much because he hasn't done much, with his playing time. I don't see how Dean Wade didn't go up. If you're going to put somebody going up, 6.5 points a game, 50% from three on 3 attempts, that would have warranted to me the increase to a 73 for Dean Wade, not for Dylan Windler. And then lastly, sorry, I'm fighting I had the flu pretty much a week ago and still have the cough and a little bit of congestion. Luckily, no sore throat anymore. So I apologize for if I'm coughing into the mic. But looking at Brandon Goodwin, they kind of went off Brandon Goodwin's production a week and a half ago. I finally got him updated. He bumped up to a 72 overall +3. I guess you could warrant that. I don't know. They took a little bit to get him bumped up. I thought that they maybe could have got him to like a 71 and been okay there. But I'm not mad that Goodwin went up. At least they paid attention to get him increased there. The Boston Celtics up next. The Celtics, to me, up and down sporadic team. Al Horford goes -1 to a 79 overall. Josh Richardson dips back down -1 to a 77 overall. Enes Freedom, -1 to a 77 overall. He has been struggling all season. He's been horrible defensively. He's averaging 1.7 points a game in 12 minutes per game, 2 rebounds, but yet he's a 77 overall. Yet we have Grant Williams, who's in the rotation consistently, averaging 8 points a game, 52% from the field. He's a 74 overall, and he goes down -1. That I don't understand. Grant Williams should have went up 1. Enes Freedom should have went down to at least a 74, 75. But because of the formula of 2K and the center formula specifically for attributes, it overrates the archaic notion that centers, have to have high rebounding ratings and things like that. There's no real stretch center rating that accurately portrays a center. So that's why Freedom's rated so high. But if you're going to do like 2K, you could go into the intangible ratings here, dipped it down, if you need to play with it and get it adjusted accordingly. And that would have knocked down Freedom to at least a 75, which I would have been fine with if you had Grant Williams at like a 76. That would have been okay to me to at least get Freedom down that low. Moving over to the LA Clippers, some changes here for them. Reggie Jackson finally gets bumped up. His position also was changed to point guard shooting guard as he's now the starter. He goes +1 to a 77. Nicholas Batum goes +1 to a 77 overall. Marcus Morris Sr. goes -1 to a 77 overall. Amir Coffey got a position change to shooting guard small forward. He goes +2 to a 77 overall. Has looked really good lately. Eric Bledsoe has been coming off the bench as the backup point guard. He dips down to a -1 to a 76 overall. And then Isaiah Hartenstein has been kind of sporadic in and out of the rotation. He goes -1 to a 76 overall. No other changes for the Clippers. Obviously, with like the main guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard kind of being out, you have to get a better sense of what the team is. I thought that maybe if somebody was going to go up, Luke Kennard could have went up a little bit, averaging 15 points a game over his last 5 games. It's kind of all subjective how you look at the 2K ratings, but I thought that, if he's going to stay on par to 76, that's fine. If you're going to bump somebody up, he could have went up a little bit, but otherwise, the roster is okay as far as the Clippers go. Not counting Paul George should be higher, even though he's hurt. He should have been higher originally as far as overall goes. The Memphis Grizzlies, looking at them, you know, it, it comes down to me, um, you know, doing the little things as far as the ratings updates to get players boosted up that are way too low. One player that they haven't touched all year that I wish they would is Killian Tilly. He's been in the rotation, power forward, small forward, 5 points a game. Nothing major. I'm not saying increase him to like a 75 overall, but a +1 to a 70 overall at least. So he's on par with Tyrell Terry, and Santi Aldama. That would be, at least something that they could do. Position change for Jarrett Culver, moved over to small forward. I thought if they were going to do that, they should have moved John Conchar to shooting guard. But if they moved Conchar to shooting guard, that would have knocked him -2 overall. So they did not do that. They already have him overinflated with the 98 intangibles, despite the speed ratings only being in the 60s for a guard. But we're not going to dive into that today. Zaire Williams goes +1 to a 73 overall. He's been starting games, 9 points a game. Athletic, able to hold his own defensively. So it wasn't going to be much of a boost there for him. Xavier Tillman goes -1 to a 76 overall. Tillman's kind of dipped down in production, only 3 points a game, kind of out of the rotation. As far as in and out of the rotation, I should say, rather, as backup center. And then looking at like kind of the rest of the roster, there wasn't really many other changes that you could make. Steven Adams went -1 to an 81 overall. He's dipped down in production, only 4 points a game, 9 rebounds in 27 minutes in the past 6 games. I thought maybe a small boost to Jaren Jackson Jr. could have been warranted, especially the blocks. Considering that he's averaging 3.5 blocks per game, I thought that was warranted, that he could go maybe up in the block category. But if you increase the block category there, it doesn't change his overall. But you could have kind of played around, with some other things to kind of fill out him, maybe to get him to an 84 overall. Because I thought, obviously, Jaren Jackson Jr. Could go up. But then you look at Desmond Bane averaging 21 points a game. He's kind of right on par at 83, and Jackson's only averaging 18 a game. So, technically, maybe it is warranted to keep him at an 83 overall. Moving on to the Atlanta Hawks. Very disappointed in this Hawks update. Not going to lie. I try to remain as positive as I can with ratings, but this, the Hawks team they've won 5 in a row. So winning 5 in a row, one of the big catalysts of that has been the defense and even the offensive production of DeAndre Hunter. His return sparked that run. The Cam Reddish trade sparked the run as well. Hunter's averaging 16 points a game, 51% from the floor, 36% from 3, 4 rebounds. I thought it warranted going up at least to a 78, 79. He should be at least on par with Danilo Gallinari there, if we're being honest, because Gallinari's been playing well as well. Kevin Huerter still sits at a 76. I argue this because there's other shooting guards in the league that are rated higher. At least get him to a 77, because then he'd be on par with DeLon Wright. DeLon Wright is the backup. Bogdanovich has been hurt, but at least has played in 2 games, averaging 13 points a game. He should at least have been, a 77 on par with Kevin Huerter. Personally, they did increase +1 Onyeka Okongwu, who's been averaging 11 points a game, 6 rebounds, and 2 blocks. So good to see that there. Kevin Knox had a position change that decreased him down to a 71 -2. And then Lou Williams goes +1 to a 74 overall. He's been back in the rotation lately, averaging 9 points a game. Next, we go over to the Miami Heat. Another player that I have a discrepancy with is Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson has, for the last 3 updates, has sat at a 75 overall. He's a starting shooting guard. Duncan Robinson's averaged in the past 7 games 13 points a game, 42% from 3, has improved his defense, has been able to stay on the floor, at least get him to a 77, so he's at least on par with Yurt 7 and Dedmon, who are backups. He'd still be under Max Strus, but Strus has had the better season so far, even though Strus has struggled in the past 7 games, dipping his averages down to 10 points a game, 34% from the floor. Maybe he could have dipped down to a 77, and then Robinson bumped up to a 77. That would have made more sense, in my opinion. Caleb Martin goes +1 to a 79, 11 points a game. Obviously, his defense sticks out, multiple position player, so no problem there with that. Tyler Hero goes +1. The last 4 games, he's averaged 21 points a game, 48% from the 3. 3 assists a game and a steal a game. 83 is just fine to me, as far as an improvement. That's it for the Miami Heat. Curious about the Charlotte Hornets. I have a couple things regarding the Hornets that were a little surprising. LaMelo Ball goes -1 in overall, despite increasing his points per game +3 over the past 6 games. He's now back up to 20 points a game, 7 rebounds, 8 assists, and nearly a steal a game. He should have stayed at the 86 that he was at. I don't think it warranted going down. Miles Bridges could have made the case he could have went up 1. He's averaging 24 points a game, 7 rebounds, and 2.5 assists, nearly a block a game. I thought maybe he can go up 1 to an 84. PJ Washington goes -1 to a 78 overall. I thought he could have went lower because he's averaging 7 points a game. Hasn't looked great overall. This is the one that gets me. Nick Richards is a 76 overall. Let's scroll over to the intangibles rating. 98 intangibles rating to get him fluffed up to that 76 overall. Let's see if we dropped him to a normal intangibles rating of a 50. You could see there that he drops to a 73 overall. Yet James Bouknight and Ish Smith are below him and on par with him at a 73. Yet in the stock ratings, they are 3 and 4 points below him, despite both of them having played recently in the rotation, and Richards nowhere to be found. Jalen McDaniels goes -1 overall. McDaniels kind of playing time has been down 6 points a game in 15 minutes. 76 is fine, but they've got to figure out how to get Bouknight at least to a 73. Richards down. I would have put him personally down to a 72. So then he's on par with Vernon Carey and Kai Jones. As none of those guys play in the rotation anyway, but that's just my personal opinion. The Utah Jazz, Mike Conley goes -1 to an 83 overall. Bojan Bogdanovic goes -1 to an 81. Jordan Clarkson goes -1 to a 77. Hassan Whiteside -1 to a 77. Eric Paschall +1 to a 75. And then Trent Forrest goes +2 to a 72. Sacramento Kings, 2 changes. Harrison Barnes didn't go up, despite Harrison Barnes's production, Harrison Barnes did not go up. I don't get it. Barnes is averaging 19 points a game, 6 rebounds, 3 assists, playing good defense. He didn't go up in this update. I thought he should have at least to an 81, if not an 82, on par with Tyrese Halliburton, since he has better stats than Halliburton. Halliburton's only averaging 13 points a game, shooting only 30% from the floor, but his assists are good, so that's why he's kind of at an 82. So at least I've had Barnes pushed up to an 82. That would have been good. Terrence Davis goes +2 to a 78 overall. Before he hurt his wrist, he was averaging 16 points a game on 43% three-point shooting, 48% from the floor. Tristan Thompson, who has been nowhere to be found in the rotation, goes -1 to a 76 overall. I just don't understand. So, like, Alex Len is a 75 and has played more, and then Davion Mitchell is averaging 11 points a game, and he's a 75. I don't get it. At least have had Mitchell at a 76. Thompson should have probably went down to a 75 on par with Len. That would have made more sense, in my opinion, as far as the Sacramento Kings go. The New York Knicks, I don't know at this point with where the Knicks are going as a team. RJ Barrett goes +1 to an 83 overall. 21 points a game in the last 7, 38% from 3, 7 rebounds, 3.4 assists. Kemba Walker goes -1 to an 80 overall. I don't understand why Kemba hasn't dipped down more. Only averaging 10 points a game, 38% from the floor, 29% from 3. Doesn't pass the ball very well. Only 1.8 assists to go with 1.5 turnovers. I would have, liked to have seen him at a 79. Speaking of 79 overall rating, Cam Reddish has the same rating that he has from 2 updates ago on the Atlanta Hawks of a 79 overall, despite only playing 7 minutes a game, averaging 4 points, 25% from 3, 37% from the floor. But he has a 79 overall rating, yet Kevin Huerter, Bogdanovich, DeAndre Hunter, all of those guys are rated below Cam Reddish, who doesn't even play. Reddish should be at a 76 overall, and that would have made more sense. Alec Burks goes -1 to a 77 overall. He's been playing poorly lately. 28% from the floor, 26% from 3, only averaging 7 points a game. Obi Toppin dips down -1 to a 76 overall, 7 points a game. I don't understand. You drop Toppin, but you don't touch Cam Reddish, even though Toppin has fared well in his limited minutes. It's not Toppin's fault that Tom Thibodeau won't play him. Emmanuel quickly goes down in overall, 8 points a game. He hasn't shot it that great, but his assists are at 5 assists a game. He's been playing the backup point guard role. At least have kept him at a 77. If you're going to have Burks at a 77, I mean, come on. Quentin Grimes goes +1 to a 74 overall. 7.6 points per game, 45% from the floor, 45% from 3 as well. He should be a 75 overall, personally. But, that's just what I think as far as the ratings go. And again, this is just my opinion. I'm not trying to crap on 2K or anything like that. It's just if you're going to change certain guys, look at the entire roster as a whole. Look at the past 7 games since the last update. Look at what's increased. Look who's playing. Look who's not playing. Things like that. The LA Lakers still have DeAndre Jordan at a 77. I don't understand why they will not drop DeAndre Jordan from a 77 overall. I mean, DeAndre Jordan's played in 1 game over the past 7 games, and that's it. and he doesn't play, but he's rated like he's a key backup center. I don't get it. The rating changes for this update. Taylor Horton Tucker goes -1 to a 75 overall. Really been struggling. 7 points a game, 26% from three, 37% from the floor. He's likely to get traded at the deadline, I assume. Stanley Johnson gets a position change to small forward, goes +2 in overall to a 74. His defense and hustle has been, wildly known, to even the casual fans that aren't Lakers fans. I thought that Avery Bradley could have gone up at least +1 or 2. 7.4 points per game, 39% from three, playing key defense. At least, have him on par with Taylor Horton Tucker since Bradley does start. But yeah, I guess 2K decided not to look at that. The Orlando Magic. And there was no other position changes for the Lakers, by the way. No position changes for the Orlando Magic as well. Looking at the Magic's changes, Cole Anthony has dipped his production down, not shooting it well, 34% from the floor, 23% over the past 7 games, only 11 points a game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. He dips down, -1 overall. Franz Wagner, 14.6 or 15 points a game, but his 3-point shooting is way down, 23%. He drops -1. They still have Mo Bamba and an 80 overall. I would have dropped him down by now, personally, but that's just me. Terrence Ross's productions went way down, only averaging 4.3 points per game, 28% from the floor, 21% from three, but he does not get a dip at all. He should have went way down. Jalen Suggs gets a small increase, +1, averaging 15 points a game, 48% from the floor, 5 assists and 5 rebounds. I thought he could have went up to a 77 personally. Should be over Terrence Ross for sure. I thought that Gary Harris could have went up, +1, 11 points a game. Good defense the past few games, but he didn't get an increase. Mo Wagner goes +2. Wagner has been playing really well, 12 points a game over his past 7 games, 61% from the floor, 40% from three. Doesn't really rebound or anything like that, but he gets an increase. Going over to the Dallas Mavericks. So the Mavericks get 2 changes over in rating. So Luka Doncic goes back up to a 94 overall. Obviously, he's come back to life. And then Sterling Brown gets a -1 to a 71 overall. Sterling Brown has kind of fallen out of the rotation. Hasn't really done much over the past 7 games. Position change here. Jalen Brunson moves to shooting guard. He's been starting next to Luka. Also, Kristaps Porzingis has moved to center as he's been starting at center. Maxi Kleber has been starting at power forward. I thought that 2K would take a look at the low ratings of Reggie Bullock, and get him increased to at least a 74, but they didn't touch him. Tim Hardaway Jr. is the big loss for Dallas, broken left foot, so we'll see. They still have guys like Trey Burke, despite not being in the rotation, rated high at a 75. He should have dipped down a long time ago. And that's what I meant by 2K paying a little bit more attention to the guys that aren't playing, why they're not playing, what they're doing, kind of in the update in between, or in the time in between updates. Frank Ntilikina gets a position change to point guard. He's been playing the backup minutes behind Luka whenever Brunson's not switched over to point guard. The Brooklyn Nets, they're getting smacked right now with just injuries and just, not being able to be at full strength. I thought a couple couple of guys would have got updated that did not, but I'll talk about those in a second. Let's talk about the ones that did. James Harden goes +1 to a 91 overall. Now he's on par with Kyrie Irving. We have DeAndre Bembry dipping down -1 to a 75. Day'Ron Sharpe, who's been looking great lately, 73 overall, +2. And Kessler Edwards goes +1 to a 73 overall. He's been playing well lately. Surprised they didn't update James Johnson. Johnson averaging 7 points a game. Rebounding well, playing good defense. I thought he warranted at least a +1, so he would have been on par with Paul Millsap, who's not playing. He's going to get traded or bought out. And then Cam Thomas has had a couple of good games in the rotation, 10 points a game. Nothing earth-shattering or anything like that, but at least a 74 overall, kind of getting him boosted up. And I thought that, that would have been good. But I guess because Edwards has had similar production, along with Sharpe, they've kind of all have him lumped in at a 73. So maybe that's the reason why. Same with James Johnson. So Harden goes to +1, and that was the big change for Brooklyn. The Denver Nuggets, they had a position change for Jeff Green and Aaron Gordon. They flip-flopped. Aaron Gordon is the power forward. Jeff Green is the small forward. I guess they based it off of the rotation patterns. A lot of times, Austin Rivers seems to come in for Jeff Green, and that's why. So, speaking of Aaron Gordon, he goes +1 to an 80 overall. Will Barton goes +1 to a 79. Monte Morris goes -1 to a 78. Jeff Green goes +2 to a 76. Zeke Nnaji goes +1 to a 76 overall. Facu Campazzo goes a -1 to a 75 overall. He's really been struggling, to say the least. Thought Austin Rivers should have went up in this overall. 11.5 points a game, 60% from the floor, 56% from three on 4.5 attempts. Kind of in and out of the lineup, starting lineup as well. I thought he could at least have gone up to a 75 to be on par with Bryn Forbes. But that's just my opinion. The Indiana Pacers had quite a few changes to their team. Karis LeVert goes +1 to an 81 overall. Chris Duarte goes +1 to a 77 overall. Those two I definitely agree with. I thought they should have both went up. Torrey Craig, Lance Stevenson, and Jeremy Lamb all go -1 to a 76 overall. I thought that's warranted. I thought they could have moved Lance Stevenson to the backup point guard since he's been playing there quite a bit. Justin Holiday gets a much-needed bump, +1 to a 74. I thought he can go higher than that since he's averaging 14 points a game, 46% from three. Plus his speed ratings are just atrocious. A 50 speed with ball, and then his speed is a 53 for a guard/small forward. That's ridiculous. At least get him up to on par with Lamb and Craig. 75, 76 range would have been perfect. Goga Batazde goes +2 to a 73 overall. He's been averaging 11 points a game over his last 7. O'Shea Brissett has dipped in production along with Kiefer Sykes. O'Shea Brissett goes -2 to a 72, and then Kiefer Sykes goes -1 to a 72. I thought if you were going to drop Sykes down, you should have brought up Dwayne Washington, who's been averaging 8 points a game, 43% from three, vastly improved on 4.7 attempts per game. I thought he could at least have gone up to a 73, to be honest. And then Terry Taylor should be a small forward, power forward, not a shooting guard small forward. The New Orleans Pelicans didn't get much of an update, just like they haven't for much of the year. Jose Alvarado got a much needed increase to a 72. That's plus 5. It's one of the biggest movers in the entire roster update. Stellar defense, pass first guard. Has really brought a spark to the team lately. I thought that Nickeil Alexander-Walker could have went up. He's been playing a little bit better lately. 12 points a game, 41% from the floor, 3.6 assists, but he did not go up. Excuse me. I thought that we would have seen more of a change for like Devontae Graham, maybe Jonas Valanciunas, goes back up one. Brandon Ingram maybe up one. Those kinds of things. Garrett Temple goes -1. Temple has just been, not good this year. 31% from the floor, 17% from three over his last 7. Just hasn't looked good at all. The Detroit Pistons, this is another team that I have some discrepancies with. I just don't understand. So Cade Cunningham does go +1. I agree with that. Has been playing, very confident lately. I also agree with Corey Joseph going up +1 to a 75 overall. He took over the starting point guard spot. What I don't necessarily agree with, if you're going to look at the team overall, Sadiq Bey's stats have gone down considerably since the last update, along with Hamidou Diallo. Both of them still sit at a 79. I thought they could have dipped down to a 78 each, along with Kelly Olynyk down to a 78. Overall, that's just my personal opinion. Considering Trey Lyles is a 76 and he's averaging better stats than Olynyk and Diallo, I thought that, it warranted the Diallo, Bey, Olynyk dipping down just a little bit. This one's questionable. Saben Lee doesn't get touched. He had went up to a 74 in the last update. He's averaging 2 points a game in 13 minutes. Not looking great. Doesn't score well. Doesn't shoot it well. He's a 74. But yet Killian Hayes has started all season. And I just don't understand. Like, he hasn't been touched since last season. Pretty good defense. Can pass the ball. At least get him to a 73. Dip Saben Lee down. He is the backup now, but I think he's going to show a resurgence since he's going to be more comfortable as the backup. Frank Jackson, granted, he was out for a number of games because of COVID, but even before the recent stretch, he was averaging 11 points a game, and he doesn't get touched. He's a 72. He should have been the 74. Lee should have been a 72. Killian Hayes should have went up, personally. They jumped the gun on Luka Garza, who's barely played. I don't get it. The Pistons roster is one of my least favorites as far as the ratings go. I thought they could have cleaned those up a little bit more. The Toronto Raptors, they have a 1 total change in this roster update. 1. Scotty Barnes goes -1 to an 81 overall. Okay, so Scotty Barnes goes down, right? But Gary Trent Jr., who's averaging 23 points a game on 47% three-point shooting over his last 4 games, stays at an 79. He doesn't get increased. He shouldn't have dropped last update. He should have actually been an 81 on par with Scotty Barnes, in my opinion. You can make whatever argument you want to. Delano Banton is a 73. He's in the rotation as the backup. 7 points a game, 44% from 3 on 3 attempts. The 3-point change doesn't get made. He's only averaging, 44% over the last couple games. Would have had him in the high 80s. At least bump him up a couple points to have him on par. Svi Mikhailuk isn't even in the rotation, and he's still a 74. Not really thrilled with the Raptors. overall. I don't know that they even get looked at that much because nobody really talks about them all that often. Yuta Watanabe has not even averaged a point per game, really struggling in the limited minutes he's played. Um, you know, but yet Justin Champagnie has been busting his behind. He doesn't score much, but he can rebound and defend. At least get him to a 70 overall or 71 over Isaac Bonga, who doesn't even get in the rotation. Houston Rockets, looking at them, I think the roster is going to look a lot different in a couple weeks whenever they make the trade deadline deals that they're going to make. One change for them, Kevin Porter Jr. goes +1 to a 77. He's been averaging 16 points a game, 38% from three, 7 assists per game. Looking at the rest of the roster, nothing's really necessarily stood out as far as guys that could have went up or down. So I didn't really have anything, to pick about as far as the team goes here. The San Antonio Spurs, I thought personally with the Spurs, I thought that DeJounte Murray being at 86 was a little low, but then Murray's not been shooting it well from three, so that kind of plays a big part in what 2K looks at as far as up and down. But the biggest discrepancy I have on the entire roster, and I've had it all season, is Jakob Poeltl, a 78 overall. In his last 6 games, he's averaged 19 points a game, 70% field goal percent, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 3.2 blocks per game. He at least should be at 81 overall, personally. I mean, I think he's the second best player on the team, and then you could argue Keldon Johnson and, Derek White. But, personally, I think that Poeltl is long overdue, for an update. All right, let's go over what changed. Thad Young goes -1 to a 76. Lonnie Walker goes -1 to a 75. Keita Bates-Diop goes -2 to a 74. He's been kind of sporadic in and out. Josh Primo goes -1 to a 72. And then Jock Landale finally gets an increase to a 70 overall. Was playing backup minutes. Looked decent. 3 rebounds, or 4 points, 3 rebounds, and only 9 minutes a game. So not bad. Or 11 minutes a game, I should say. So not too bad there. I thought that Doug McDermott could have got a bump to a 75, 11 points a game. But that's okay, I guess. I just don't like having Drew Eubanks, who's a backup, 2 points higher than your starter and Doug McDermott, but that's my personal opinion. The Phoenix Suns, you would have thought they would have got more love considering how much they've been winning this season, but at least Chris Paul gets updated. He goes +2 to a 90 overall. Nothing for Devin Booker. Nothing for Miles Bridges as far as defense and things like that. Nothing for Jay Crowder. I thought Jay Crowder, since he's a starter, should be rated a little bit higher. He's injured now, but Campaign did go +1 to a 76 overall. Don't understand how Jalen Smith's still a 76. He's out of the rotation. Back to his normal non-production. Frank Kaminsky, even though he's injured, rated above Landry Shamet and Bismack Biyombo, both who are in the rotation. Don't understand that one. I thought Biyombo could have went up a little bit more, averaging 14 points a game to go with 9 rebounds and 1 block, considering he's been starting with DeAndre Ayton out. I thought he would have went up to at least where, 76 range where Jalen Smith is. Jalen Smith should have dropped down to where Biyombo is. Kaminsky could have dropped down as well. The Oklahoma City Thunder, and there was no position changes unless I pretty much highlight them. Just assume there's no position changes for the any of the teams there. Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, excuse me, goes +1 to an 87 overall, 27 points a game, 46% from the floor, 6 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals. So he was deserved for an update there. Don't understand how Alexei Pokashevsky has not had his rating touched at all. He's been abysmal in the G League, let alone the NBA. He still has a 75, but Darius Baisley, who's consistently in the rotation, averaging 8 points a game to go with 6 rebounds, is rated lower. I don't understand that. The starter in Jeremiah Robinson Earl is rated lower than Pokashevsky as well. Ty Jerome, Aaron Wiggins. I just don't understand where the rating change isn't coming for Pokashevsky. Derek Favors goes -1 to a 76. He's been hurt, so it doesn't really affect much there. Going over to the Minnesota Timberwolves, very minimal changes for the Timberwolves. Only 2 players changed. Pat Beverly's been struggling lately. He goes -1 to a 78 overall. And then secondly, for the Minnesota Timberwolves, Jalen Noel increases 1 in overall to a 77 overall. Portland Trailblazers, couple of changes for them. CJ McCollum goes -1 to a 84 overall. I don't know. I mean, I would have left him at 85 personally, but I'm not going to nitpick. Position change for Anthony Simons. Finally put back a point guard. He goes +1 to an 80 overall. I thought he could go a little bit higher. Considering he's averages 22 points a game, 43% from 3, 44% from the floor, 7 assists. I thought he could at least be an 81. Cody Zeller has struggled all season. He's hurt now. But I thought Zeller should have went down in the last update at least -1. Don't know how Dennis Smith goes up to a 75 overall. But then you have Robert Covington, who's a starter and has consistently played good defense. He stays at a 74. I don't get it. Tony Snell goes -1 to a 72 overall. He's really been struggling from shooting the ball. Trendon Watford finally sees an uptick since he's been kind of in the rotation, averaging 5 points a game, 4 rebounds. He goes +2 to a 70 overall. Golden State Warriors. A couple of changes for them as well. We're going to start kind of at the bottom there. Juan Toscano-Anderson has dipped out of the rotation. He goes -1 to a 74 overall. Jonathan Kuminga has played well in the rotation for a couple games, kind of sporadic. +1 to a 75 overall. Andre Iguodala has been injured lately. He goes -1 to a 76 overall. Jordan Poole goes -1 to a 78 overall. Don't really understand that one. Klay Thompson goes -1 to an 86. He's still got a 94 3-point rating. He's still got overinflated defensive ratings. I thought getting him at least to an 84 would have been, key. I personally would have had him at 82, but at least down to an 84 to replicate that he's been, not quite back to normal, considering his production, back in his prime days. Looking at also Steph Curry, despite his struggles, he still has a 99 3-pointer. 2K, I don't think is ever going to change that. I don't know why. I guess it's to favor the casual fans that want to play online. Um, Last but not least is the Washington Wizards as we wrap up this update. Two changes for them. Rui Hachimura goes -1 to a 77, and then Davis Bertans goes -1 to a 74. I thought personally that Kentavious Caldwell Pope could have went +1, at least for his defense. To be on par, at least because he's a starter, at least on par with Denny Avdia, who is the backup. And then I thought that Gafford and Bryant could have went down just based on their production lately. But I'm not going to nitpick it too much. But overall, it was a lighter update for 2K. Like I said earlier, they had a bigger update last week, so I wasn't expecting a massive update, but a couple people that I thought have changed. I did post on Operation Sports. I'll post a link in the description to that so you can read the written copy and then read my analysis of the written players, written analysis of the players who I thought should have went up or down, just my opinion. But thanks everybody for checking out this video. If you liked the content, please like the video, comment below. Also subscribe if you haven't already. Tell a few friends. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.